Sports give us mythic heroes, the hometown kid who defies the odds, the Olympian who rewrites what a body can do. Yet sometimes those same arcs veer into darkness. This episode isn't about playbooks or podiums. It's about 10 athletes whose fame couldn't save them from their own choices. Aaron Hernandez. Aaron Hernandez grew up in Bristol, Connecticut, a gifted tight end whose teenage years were scarred by the sudden death of his father. He channeled his pain into football, winning a national championship at the University of Florida, and then catching touchdowns for the New England Patriots. The team rewarded him with a lucrative contract extension, cementing him as legend. Off the field, he ran with volatile friends and carried guns. In June 2013, he was arrested for the execution-style murder of Odin Lloyd. Prosecutors said he orchestrated the killing because he felt disrespected. A jury convicted him of first-degree murder, and in 2015, he was sentenced to life without parole. 2 years later, while still appealing a separate double murder case, he took his own life in prison. Massachusetts' highest court later reinstated the murder conviction, concluding that his suicide did not erase his. Oscar Pistorius. Born without fibulas, Oscar Pistorius had both legs amputated before his first birthday. He refused to let disability define him. Running on carbon fiber blades, he won multiple Paralympic titles and even qualified for the 2012 Olympic Games. The world christened him the Blade Runner. On Valentine's Day 2013, that inspirational narrative shattered when he fired 4 shots through a locked bathroom door in his Pretoria home, killing his girlfriend Reva Steenkamp. Pistorius claimed he thought there was an intruder. South Africa's appeal court disagreed, upgrading his culpable homicide conviction to murder. He ultimately received a 13-year, 5-month sentence and was released on parole in January 2024. Under strict conditions. In June 2025, a Reuters report spotted him racing in a triathlon in Durban. Officials said he had permission and reminded the public he remains on parole until his sentence expires in 2029. Carlos Monzon's journey ran from the dusty streets of Santa Fe, Argentina to Madison Square Garden. A natural fighter with a granite chin, he won the world middleweight title in 1970 and defended it 14 times. He dated actresses, acted in films, and became a symbol of national pride. Behind the glamour lay volatility. On a February night in 1988, an argument with his partner, Alicia Muniz, turned deadly. Witnesses said he strangled her, and she plummeted from a balcony. A panel of judges convicted him of murder in 1989 and sentenced him to 11 years. Monzon died in a car crash in 1995 while returning to prison after a weekend furlough, leaving fans to grapple with the contradiction of a beloved champion and a convicted. Bruno Fernandes de Souza, growing up in the favela of Ribeirão das Neves, Bruno Fernandes dreamed of guarding the net for Brazil. He became a star goalkeeper for Flamengo, winning titles and courting national team selectors. In 2010, his secret life surfaced. Prosecutors said he arranged the kidnapping and murder of his former girlfriend, Eliza Samudio, and ordered the disposal of her body. He also kidnapped their infant son. In 2013, he was sentenced to more than 22 years. Brazilian courts later granted him temporary release because his appeal took too long. He signed for a second division club and played 5 matches before public outrage led the Supreme Court to revoke his release and send him back to prison. He continues to serve his sentence. Robert Rozier. Robert Rozier's life reads like a cautionary fable. A defensive end for the St. Louis Cardinals, he bounced from the NFL to the Canadian leagues and then drifted into crime. In Miami, he encountered Yahweh Ben Yahweh, leader of a sect that promised brotherhood but demanded blood. Initiation into the cult's elite brotherhood required killing a white devil and presenting a body part. Rozier admitted in court that he murdered at least 7 people to prove his loyalty. In exchange for testifying against the cult leader, he received a plea deal and served about a decade of a 22-year sentence. After entering witness protection, he was arrested for passing bad checks. Under California's 3 strikes law, he received a 25-to-life sentence. Today, he remains incarcerated, a grim example of how charismatic leaders can hijack desperate lives. Eric Naposki. Eric Naposki grew up in East Haven, Connecticut, with a chip on his shoulder and a passion for football. Coaches praised his ferocity. He earned a scholarship to UConn but left after clashing with the program. Refusing to give up, he crashed an NFL tryout and made the New England Patriots. When his NFL opportunities dried up, he joined the Barcelona Dragons in Europe's World League and became a fan favorite, helping the team win World Bowl 91. Back in Southern California, he began an affair with Nanette Johnston, who was living with wealthy entrepreneur Bill McLaughlin. Prosecutors said Johnston plotted to collect McLaughlin's life insurance and enlisted Naposki to pull the trigger. On December 15, 1994, McLaughlin was shot 6 times in his Newport Beach kitchen. Investigators connected Naposki to the murder years later using ballistics evidence. A jury convicted him of first-degree murder in 2011, and he received a life sentence without parole. Anthony Smith. Drafted 11th overall by the Los Angeles Raiders in 1990, Anthony Smith looked destined for stardom. He tallied 57.5 sacks over 8 seasons and earned a hefty contract extension. But teammates whispered about his temper. He was accused of firebombing a furniture store in 2003. The case was dropped. In 2011, he was charged with murdering Murillo Ponce. As detectives probed deeper, they linked Smith to 2 more slayings. In 1999, he posed as a police officer to abduct brothers Ricky and Kevin Nettles, torturing them before dumping their bodies. In 2001, he beat and stabbed Dennis Henderson more than 40 times. Jurors found him guilty of 3 murders with special circumstances, including torture and kidnapping. In January 2016, he was sentenced to 3 consecutive life terms without parole. The pass-rushing phenom now lives behind bars. Esteban de Jesus. On Puerto Rico's backstreets, Esteban de Jesus learned to box to escape poverty. He blossomed into one of the island's greatest fighters, winning the WBC lightweight title in 1976 and famously handing Roberto Duran his first professional defeat. He retired with 57 wins and 5 losses. After boxing, he struggled with heroin and cocaine. In November 1980, a traffic dispute spiraled into violence. De Jesus pulled a gun and shot 18-year-old Roberto Cintron Gonzalez. Jurors convicted him of first-degree murder and weapons violations, and he received a life sentence plus 5 years. While incarcerated, he contracted HIV/AIDS. In 1990, with his health failing, Governor Rafael Hernandez Colon pardoned him on humanitarian grounds. De Jesus died shortly after his release, a tragic coda to a glittering career. Mark Gator Rogowski. Mark Rogowski turned pro at 14 and helped define 1980s vert skating with his aggressive style and contagious charisma. Sponsorships, magazine covers, and film appearances followed. When the industry shifted towards street skating, his income collapsed. He struggled with alcohol and anger. In 1991, he invited Jessica Bergstein to his California apartment, bludgeoned her with a metal bar, raped her, stuffed her body into a surfboard bag, and buried her in the desert. He confessed to his pastor and pleaded guilty. Rogowski received a sentence of 31 years to life. He became eligible for parole decades later. In 2022, the parole board recommended release, but Governor Gavin Newsom reversed the grant. In May 2025, a California appellate court upheld that decision, meaning Rogowski remains incarcerated without a new hearing. Bertil Fox. Bertil Fox was born in St. Kitts and moved to London as a toddler. Encouraged by family, he took up bodybuilding and captured the Junior Mr. Britain title at 18. Known for his immense, brutal Bertil physique, he won the AAU Mr. World in 1976 and the NABA Mr. Universe titles in 1978 and 1979. He later joined the IFBB professional circuit, finishing second at the 1982 Night of Champions and the 1983 Swiss Grand Prix and placing 5th at the 1983 Mr. Olympia. In September 1997, Fox shot and killed his former fiancée, Leoka Brown, and her mother, Violet. Convicted on May 22, 1998, he received the mandatory death sentence. In 2002, the Privy Council ruled such mandatory death penalties unconstitutional, commuting his sentence to life. After serving more than 20 years, he received a pardon under the prerogative of mercy and was released on August 5, 2022. Now in his 70s, he lives quietly in Britain. That's it, folks. These 10 stories expose the fragile line between hero and villain. Talent can lift you into the stratosphere, but character determines where you land. If you want to explore more of the human stories that shape sports, from inspiring comebacks to cautionary tales, subscribe to JMurrayAthletics. Drop a comment about the next topic you're curious about and share this episode with anyone who thinks they've heard it all. New stories coming every month.